So let's begin then. Claudia, it's a pleasure to have you here on this talk. Good, we already had a quick chat before. At least I know where you're based. We've got someone from Kingston on Thames. We've got someone from Brixton. Fantastic. Oh yeah, Anna Laura is here. Fantastic. Good, and yeah, so I'm a big fan of your work, as I said. I had a good look around before the talk, and yeah, it's a great honor for you, for us to have you here tonight. I'm going to suggest that you're going to share the screen with you, and yeah, then you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do so. Thank you.
Okay, super. Would you like to do screen sharing?
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes, it's all great. That's all looking good.
Cool. Brilliant. All right. Should I start? Thank you. Okay, so yes, I am Claudia Leisinger and I am a photographer, and I'm going to talk about my work, but I'm focusing on portraiture tonight, I think. But before I delve into my work, I wanted to just briefly show you a photograph of when I was little, because my upbringing has some parts to do to nurture some aspects of my personality and shape my ideas of what is vital for my sense of well-being. I was born in India and I grew up in Bhutan till the age of 6, and then we returned to Switzerland after that. But I don't know whether that was part of what fueled it, but what I can remember since I was very little is that I've been super curious about how other people conduct their lives and what moves them, their stories, their decisions, and what connects us all together, but also how it is all interlocked into a wider picture. So I just really always want to know, how does it all hang together? And that that kind of desire is most likely driving most of what I do. So I'm going to show you here first a series of just a selection of a few images of a project I did on the gravediggers in South London. But before, I'm going to say, so why is photography the thing that I've chosen? And I think it is because it is the permission to myself to open, and an open call to see and examine and interpret what is happening around me. It affirms me and I feel alive, which is very basic, but always makes me happy. And it's just, the camera is a tool that connects me to others and the world around me, and it gives me purpose. It gives me the purpose to go up to somebody and say, you know. And once the other person has agreed to be part of it, it's an exchange that that is like a bit of a special dance, and I find it always really fascinating how it moves and where does it go. One just never knows, really. And so, as I said, this story, The Gravediggers, I shot for my master's, is part of the master's at LCC that I did. The brief was to shoot a 12-image essay, and the conditions was it had to be black and white, so that's why it is black and white. Why I was driven to do the story is because I was just so curious about what is it like to be in a physically and emotionally challenging job that also has negative connotations attached to it. And how does one identify with such an occupation? And how do you even become a gravedigger? And so I was kind of going with these questions and many more in my mind, and I arrived early one morning at Camberwell New Cemetery to meet the cemetery manager, Terry Connor. And before I met the gravediggers, he warned me, and he said, most photographers don't really have, they're not really lucky. They don't want them there. And I don't know why, but fortunately they let me in, and I spent a month in their company, not every day, but again and again. And very soon I was super fascinated with their working world. and how they function somehow a little bit on the outskirts of society. And I wondered whether the average person ever thinks of gravediggers, because when we encounter them, we typically are totally overwhelmed and absorbed with feelings that don't, that other feelings. So I just found it really interesting. And I think their humor comes across in this image there, the exit image. So there's just a few more images here.
Can I ask, Claudia, was it at the LCC, was it for a photojournalism MA or? Okay, fantastic. Okay,
yes,
good.
photojournalism.
That is your formal background?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then one day, so this is an image of a funeral of a 15-year-old boy who was killed in Peckham. And I'm showing this because, I mean, first of all, this sounds maybe silly, but I wasn't really planning to shoot a funeral. I assumed that people did not want another person present. And then the gravediggers told me that actually it's not such a rarity that there are photographers around. And so this was happening totally by fluke, because the day before this funeral happened, I was there photographing the crew again, the guys, and Gary told me that there was this upcoming funeral, and I thought, oh, no, I have to at least try. So I got in touch with the funeral director, and they got in touch with the family, and they gave me permission to photograph. And for me, it was an amazing, I mean, it was really quite, a very special occasion and moment. And I really liked the stillness of this image. And I submitted it later to the Ian Parry Scholarship. And it was selected as part of the exhibition, which was obviously, very nice for me. But this is another reason why I love photography so much. It's because it kind of, it's an adventure. I measure myself against the world, and I follow an idea and invite the world in. And then every now and then, these amazing moments happen when things just come together, and it's almost without my own input. And that is just, such an amazing feeling to be part of. And so I'm showing you the next image, which is a very similar moment for me. These are young monks in Wang Di Phodrang in Bhutan, where I shot a story in 2007, also for the masters, the photojournalism masters. And the way that image came about, again, it's just so kind of like, it makes me wonder sometimes. I was walking in this government building, which is a dzong, to meet an official, because the whole story was about Bhutan's move from monarchy to democracy. And so I was trying to meet all these different people that were connected to the election, and also a lot of just general people. But I was really going for, an age that was going to vote. I was not going to go for monks, those tiny kids. So anyway, then they were running around me and they were saying, oh, take my picture, take my picture, take my picture. And I was like, I really need to focus, girl, and go. So I said to them, okay, I was in a hurry, and I said, okay, look, all on the stairs, I'll take one shot. And that's what I did. And I walked off. They were happy. Yeah, I was happy. And then later on, I saw that, I just saw that it was pretty amazing. All these different faces, and I've made it a bit bigger, so maybe you can see it a bit better. But each one of them is just different and has a different expression, and somehow tells another story. And so I like this image, or love this image, for two reasons. One is because it's such a chance, and the other one is because there's so many different facets to it. And well, since we are in Bhutan, I'm just going to show you a very brief selection of images I took there. So, as I said, the story was the king abdicated his power to usher in a new era, a constitutional monarchy with a democratically elected government. And that is just unheard of. Like, at that moment in time, I was like, what? And what are the people thinking about this, So I was just super curious. I wanted to find out what is it, how is this for people there? And I took, as you would see, I took a lot of images that talk about this moment of just about, because it was before the election, everybody was a bit like, oh, what's going to happen? And so this was one of the images I took at the mock elections they held. But it was just for me so interesting, because that girl at the front there, she has this whole kind of like mirror this feeling of, you know, really unsure, and that is one of the things I found all over. It's this idea of, can I cast a vote? Do I actually have a voice that I need to publicly give? And I think that was fascinating to me. We are so used to this. You know, we take individual decisions every day, but I think for a collective, for a people that is so used for collective decisions, it's a really abstract thought to say, I want you, but not you, and that is just was fascinating. The next image, this is one of the officials. His name is Terry Benjor, and he was standing to be elected in one of the districts. And again, I just wanted to kind of like to, you know, take an image where it wasn't really entirely clear in who he was. And then the next image, that's one of the fascinating things or aspects of this election was that, for instance, the monks were not allowed to vote. And that is maybe not that crazy for us, but, or it wouldn't be maybe, but for a country that is where the monks have so much say and they are so involved in every decision process, it's massive and it's very controversial. But yeah, so I just, and then one last image, this is the one that I chose to kind of like, it's just that image of like, oh, you know, the sleeping dogs, and then the car is coming, and, you know, it was early in the morning and I really liked it. So yeah, that was an amazing experience for me, because obviously, you know, I grew up in Bhutan until I was 6, and then I went back there in 2007, and it was just like, yeah, amazing experience, and at parts quite overwhelming as well, but amazing. Now I think I'm going into more portraiture again. So this is 2011. And I just really always enjoy looking at portraits and also taking portraits or photographing them. The direct engagement that happens between me and the other person I'm photographing is just really special. And so, yeah, I set out to do a portrait series of a century-old London trade, the Billingsgate fish porters. Little did I know that they were also in transition. Because this became the story of the last of the Billingsgate fish porters, a story about the dying trade and the disappearance of long-standing heritage and identity, not just a portrait series that I set out to do. So I wanted to first just show you some of the portraits. I shot these, because I know maybe this will be a question. I shot these on slide, and with Veronica, medium format, and it was really nice just to, yeah, you know, indulge that really, not indulge, but just to have that really slow process, and also the slide film. It just, yeah, made it special, I think, for me again. This is, by the way, before I forget, this is Brett Singer's, and he's been at that moment in time a shop boy for 3 years. And he wanted to become a porter, very much so because of his granddad. His granddad was a porter, and his father originally also wanted to become one, but it wasn't. But for him, it was really important to become one. That was his ambition. And this is John Schofield. He was a porter for 30 years. And I won't say too much about the story of it, because I'm going to show you a little multimedia piece that kind of talks about the whole story, why. So I don't want to double up on it. This is Nick Wilson. He was a porter for 12 years. He's where he was really that he had 2 small children, and he didn't know what he was going to do after. This is Gary Durden. His family was also, his father was also a porter, and I think even his grandfather was one. This is Mike Durrell. He's been a porter for 45 years, and he had a lot of stories to tell, very funny ones. This is Jack Preston. He was the last person to become a porter. And then during this process, I basically photographed these porters. I went back and forth for a bit more than a year. When he got up very early in the morning, maybe around 3 or 4 o'clock, to get there and to shoot these series at the beginning of the morning in this beautiful light. And also that was the time when they worked. So, I mean, it wasn't really me asking them to be there. I didn't really have a lot of time to shoot them because they were working. So it had to be very quick. But I also took these kind of photographs where I wanted to basically talk more about the community and the togetherness that they had in this particular bubble. It was a bubble because it happened so early in the morning and it was done by 8. And it's almost like, this kind of, I don't know, I've never worked in a night job, but I imagine night jobs to be like that. You are just in an alternative world in some ways. And I think that's very much what they felt like. I'm going to show you this image. This is one of the images I took first when I arrived very early on. This is one of the most amazing cafes I've ever been in. Like, I mean, as a non-English person to go in a place like that, it's just amazing. And all these images of market life, and it's just so full of history and joy and life, and it's just beautiful. This cafe was very much kind of the heart of the whole market. So the very last day when their jobs ended, they came back in the morning after the very last day in the morning, just to see whether it was really real, whether they really lost their jobs. Obviously, they were hoping it wasn't the case. And then I took this image. So these are the same guys, not same, but they are all the people that I photographed during this year. And they were all, now without that job. Yeah. So that was really a big story for me to photograph and to be part of. And I'm going to, shall I do the multimedia piece now?
Yeah, I've got a question. By the way, everyone who is joining at the moment, if you've got any questions, you can put them into the chat box on the right-hand side, and then I can forward them to Claudia. If I could ask Claudia, I think I can tell quite a difference in terms of style when you change the camera. Would you say that is true? Like these pictures, they look incredibly. I mean, they're just incredibly beautiful photographs, like the tonality and so on. But they also have, I mean, they have something quite painterly. Maybe it comes from the fact that working with this camera is a slower, more conscious process. Could you maybe describe how this transition? I assume that beforehand you have worked with a digital camera. I assume, yeah. How this transition from a digital camera to an analog camera, how that has worked, how that has changed your way of seeing and taking pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I think I switched between. I used to switch between cameras quite a lot. I used to shoot on a Rolleiflex, so I was used to shooting medium format before, and for Bhutan this was just not practical. But in Bhutan also my camera broke, so it was a total disaster anyway. I felt very, very disconnected with my camera. And I think what you say is absolutely right. The medium format, and especially these big bodies, they slow you down, but also they move the center, you know, like, I mean, I've shot with this is a Veronica with a viewfinder on top. So you're looking down, or I was looking down. And it's just, I wanted to have this perspective where basically the portraits are elevated. They give this bit of elevation. And I was very much kind of looking to do a series that, you know, with the kind of like old, the masters in mind, you know, the kind of very classical, beautiful, straight on portrait series. That's what I had in mind to do, and so that's how I went about it. But yeah, there's I think it's also maybe a more cohesive idea, like shooting the same time of day, and things like that. So there was definitely more thought in the actual image, whereas before maybe it was more about the storyline, and it was also, I mean, between these two projects that I showed you, there were 4 years.
And a picture like this one here, I feel really drawn into it. You can look at this, I mean, for quite a few minutes, which is quite rare for a photograph. Really often you get it and then you move on. Whereas this one here seems to be very multifaceted. It's interestingly something that you have already mentioned about those young monks, yeah. So where you said every image tells a different story, and I've got a similar feeling here. How long could I ask you? How long does it take you, or did it take you to take a picture like this? Is this I don't know? Is that a question of minutes, or have you been standing or sitting there for half an hour?
Yeah, I wish I was a bit more reflective, I guess. But I think that's why I think the medium format camera is so good for me, because it really slows me down, and that's lovely. Here it was really tricky moment because I was just really feeling for them, but also I know that the guy on the left, he still is part of the working force in Billingsgate Market. So in a sense, it's almost like a Judas photo, no? Because they had a union, and they said, we are not going to make any deals with the people that they wanted to give them new contracts, but they were not good, or they didn't like them. So said, okay, no, we are not going to accept these contracts. And then some of them did, because they just had, you know, not everybody is on the same page. And also some people just have to. So that for me, this image is just, it was so interesting because there's also a very clear division. And I think, but yeah, I don't know, it's just that expression, the expressions of them, it's just so down. So yeah. But I think I saw it and just like tried to be really fast. Shall I play the multimedia now? Cool. It's with subtitles, so hopefully it will work.
I don't know how we've dealt with it, but we have. And it's been very, I can't describe the feeling. I feel really let down, you know, really let down. Because I've given 32, 33 years of my life to this place.
My name's John Schofield, Billingsgate Fish Porter, and I've been a porter for 30 years.
My name is Martin Bicker. Alan Downing.
Bobby Jones.
My name's Gary Shaw.
Nick Wilson. Steve Jones. Edwin Singers.
My name's Chris Gill.
Colin Walker. I've worked in the market for 46 years.
33 years.
45 years. 24 years.
30 years.
53 years.
Too long.
Basically, the City of London Corporation and the LFMA, which is the London Fish Merchants Association, they don't want fish porters in Billingsgate Fish Market anymore. And they've done it. They've abolished all bylaws and the bylaws of Billingsgate was that only licensed fish porters can move fish, so not anyone can move fish.
Years ago, you got a licence because you had to be of good character. So if you take away the licence, you take away the honour of being a fish porter.
They want all fish porters not just to lose their jobs, but to vacate Billingsgate market and no longer be allowed to work here.
It was an ambition to become a porter because the market has got a lot of history regarding us porters.
My uncle got me a job down here in the old market. Most of us have known each other pretty much almost a lifetime. I've worked with men that worked with my father. There's even a man who used to work down there who knew my grandfather.
It was frightening for me, yeah. You see all these big, strong men carrying all these stuff about. They took you into their sort of family, and I just felt like one of them from day one.
The memory I keep down here the most is just working around my granddad and around my dad. Because in most people's work life, they don't get the chance. So that to me is really special.
The characters in this place, amazing. It's not been one long laugh, but I've laughed a lot in the last 30 years with the guys down here. The banter's tremendous. You know, the language is horrendous. They're all fair guys. They all look after each other. It's nice. I miss that. I miss the camaraderie, yeah. I miss the fun.
Did you tell a Tony about the Eiffel Tower? Went to Paris, me and him. Couldn't find the Eiffel Tower. Bonkers.
Yeah, no, they called us up there in the office and they said they wanted us all out. Their reasons for it, that we was closed shop, we was outdated.
Personally, I believe they're after the land. I think the land is worth so much money now that they don't want a fish market here, where there's all these Canary Wharf and Barclays Banks, all that all spread around.
Crossrail's coming up there. It's a complete glass build. It's their flagship. That's the new City of London. They are not going to have a fish market next to it with seagulls shitting all over it.
Everyone's talking about the Olympics are coming and London's heritage and all that, and they're just taking it away down here.
Because we've got the Olympics. It's lovely. But you watch what happens after that.
At the moment, we're all in limbo, really are.
They had an opportunity here to keep something unique. We see far too much change, and for the sake of change, isn't it?
This is all I know. I've done it for most of my life. Obviously, it's going to be a struggle for me. It's been tough for us all, and I know we'd all like to stay here, but times are changing, and I can't tell you what the future holds. But it'll be a sad place when we go.
Right. Yeah.
Could I ask you, Claudia, in which context did you use this multimedia piece, which is absolutely fantastic?
Oh, thank you. It's a bit rough around the edges, but yeah, it got the Guardian showed it, and it was on Photo 8, the website. Then I had a solo show in Switzerland with this body of work, and it got into Night Contact, which was like the first multimedia festival in London. Yeah, I really like mixing voices or sounds and photographs. I think it's really a fascinating thing. It was there for quite a while. It was quite strongly. It was around, and I was thinking, oh, maybe this is going to become something that is really established. But it seems to, or maybe it's me. I haven't seen that many recently. But yeah. Oh, that's true. Maybe move on. So basically, after the Billingsgate story, I feel like my photography practice has got to be organic, and so I came to that point where I was kind of questioning quite a lot of things. One of them is it, to tell stories about other people's lives, and where is your own voice in it? And so I kind of wondered about this for quite a while, and I went for a week-long holiday to Istanbul. And so because telling somebody else's story is a complex endeavor, it's really your take on somebody else's life, but you are not in the picture. It's not immediately visible that what is your addition to the actual situation. nor is it very clear what you have left out of the frame, or what the deal is between you and the people in the photographs. And so I kind of like, this just bubbled around in my head. And I spent some time in Istanbul, and I thought, let me see if I can actually, if I'm interested in taking pictures that have nothing to do with the story. But yeah, I don't know, it just, after a few days, it was a bit tricky. And then after a few days, I started to hang around at Gezi Park, and I met this man. I took his photograph, and I liked it so much, and I liked him, that I decided that I needed to hire a translator, and so that I could talk to people again, and just to do, just to figure out a little bit their names and tell them what I'm doing and stuff like that. So I'm showing you a couple of images, only a few of this time, because I quite like them. So this is a father and son I met in Gezi Park, Zain and Batuhan, and they were just having their breakfast there, and it looked really beautiful. They invited me to have their breakfast, and then found out their little story, not really their story, and found out that they were living in the park at that moment in time. And it was just a tiny snippet of life. I saw them occasionally afterwards as well, and it was just like, we've met, we exchanged quickly something, and that was it. And then I met him, the Lufti Usta, the master liver seller from Siirt, and he's been selling his special Albanian liver dish for the last 50 years, and he learned to prepare it from his father at the age of 17. And on the weekends, he comes to Gezi Park from Sultanahmet and brings over his dish and sells it to the people in the park. And I just love these kind of really, I like them. They're like short stories, these very short encounters where it is quite clear that one meets, takes a picture, one exchanges as much as one wants, and then one parts. In a way, I don't know, this is just something that is playing on my mind right now. Obviously, that the other stories, the deeper stories, are amazing as well. But somehow, when I was doing this talk, I came back to this story. And then here, this is an image that was nice, because I obviously did not, I was just, there was a lot of dogs, and they were kind of wild. And yeah, the engagement can also be with a nature or with an animal. So I just liked it. So from here, I want to start with the modern hunter-gatherers. So this is the latest photographs that I've taken. And when the pandemic, when COVID kind of came, and we're all kind of wondering what was happening. And I was also wondering how to respond to this in many different ways, but also in a visual way. And somehow I was really lucky, because I joined an open call on women photograph, which I'm part of. And there was a group of 2 women who created something called the Journal. And very soon I was having these amazing meetings with 9 other women photographers around the world. And they not only gave me a really beautiful community, but also they spurred me on to think of myself as a photographer, and also to think about this moment and how I want to talk about it, or what do I see. And that was really great, because I think without that, I don't know whether I would have been able to step outside my own, moment. And so when I stepped outside, I saw that our behavior has really drastically changed. And I spent so much more time in pursuit of necessities. Like I was on online at night to kind of get this or that, and it was just insane. And then about where can I get this? And there was no more deliveries. I don't, and the shop shelves were empty. And it was just at that moment, at the very beginning, it was such a frenzy. And I also felt like it was such a letdown, and not sure how to react to this whole. So yeah, I just felt that also I immediately kind of connected with my environment, like with people around me, and made it, you know, part of the COVID-19 group and so on and so on. And that made me feel a bit like a hunter. Like, you know, I was kind of like sharpening my senses to some sort of something that was going to happen. And I saw all these people also standing in queues, and they were ready. They were like, they were prepared. And that just made me feel like we are now like modern hunter-gatherers. We basically have to put in so much more energy and thought into what was just a side thought before. And so that's how this came about. So I was thinking, I'm going to go to Sainsbury's or Tesco's, stand on the car at the car park, put up my backdrop, and basically have big signs, invite people to come to have a photograph taken as a memory. And I was always trying to, you know, wanting to give that back to them. Just this is an insane moment. Let's capture this. And then obviously, I didn't really think that these were private lands, that the supermarket owns they own these land. And so I was asking for permissions, but nobody really, as a Waitrose got back to me, but the rest didn't bother. So then I was a bit like, oh, I really want to do this story. So I thought, okay, I'm going to basically use community. So I put it on Facebook. I put it on my dog walking site, because I have a dog and I walk. And then I put it on other sites as well, like smaller sites, more creative sites, like Mothers Who Make. And then I started to get responses, and that was really cool. So what I did then is I went to people's homes, so not inside, but outside. I set it up outside the backdrop and outside their houses, and took their photograph. And I had a really lovely assistant who helped me just, you know, with the logistics and everything, and that was really great. So this is Catherine. So I'm just gonna, should I just show them? And cool.
Did you ask them to bring something? Like, how could I? So you brought your backdrop, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, yeah. And where did you meet them? Like, did you meet them at a particular location?
Yeah. I always went to them. So I went, and most of these people are actually close to me. So I made sure that they were in my vicinity, because I, you know, didn't really want to drive far. There were a couple of exceptions, but most of them they're local to me, South London. And that was fascinating to me, because I also met a lot of people that I you know, for instance, Peter here, he is very active in a allotment that is literally down the road from me. I didn't even know existed. And I thought, oh, allotments, that is brilliant, because they can grow their own food. It's fantastic. Let's go there. So, and I met him over my mutual aid COVID group. I just put it out there, and then he responded, and he said, yeah, of course, why not? And I like the idea that, I mean, I asked for each one of them same questions about necessities and stuff. And with everybody, though, there were also other things that came out and that were really interesting. So, yeah, so for instance, with Jennifer, she had to move house in the middle of the lockdown, which is obviously very, very stressful. And, you know, I think it's with a lot of these people, it's just like, it just is so interesting to hear about each and everybody's lives. And that is Afsa, and she was just great, because she was the person at the end of the mutual aid. So she collected all the food and prepared these emergency packs, and then all of us who had cars or who had time drove them to the people who needed them. And so I just definitely, you know, wanted her to be part of it. I said to her that it's like, you know, she is the hunter-gatherer version of a store, because that's kind of like everything that needs. It's just amazing the people that you meet in these moments, really. guys, Camilo. It was very cool to meet him too. So for him, for instance, I went to East London to meet him, and it was great for me as well, because I have to say, this has really helped me and my mental health during this phase, because, you know, I just needed to learn to navigate this new situation. And it's also just really, it was fascinating just to hear what people's thoughts were. For instance, for her, it was really kind of, you know, shocking that people had this instinctive reaction of like, I need this, and not the idea of let's see what's there first, and then we can share, and we can make it together. And this is Laura. I met her twice, actually, twice. And her and her partner, they're running this South Norwood community kitchen together, which is amazing. They kept a lot of people over, over water. And basically they have this community kitchen, and usually everybody just can come and sit down at the big table and eat together. And now, because of COVID, obviously they can't do that anymore. So they are making packed lunches, and there are like 40 people coming to receive this. But then now also on top of that, actually they have upscaled to 150 meals that they drive to people in need, because there's so many people who just, they can't cope, but they need this supplement. So it's really amazing what they're doing. This is Katarina, and it was really lovely to meet her.
I know her. I just had to say now. I was just but no.
It's so cool. No, it was so lovely to meet her. Brilliant. Yeah, and this is John. He's one of the people who uses the community kitchen. And I mean, these are also all on my website, in case, you know, somebody wants to go and reread the text, because I am aware that it's quite long. This is a mother and a daughter, Jodie and Jane. They're also driving. They're driving the food to these people. Yeah. And I have, I mean, so far now I am kind of, I have maybe a couple more people that I'm going to photograph for this project, but otherwise it's finished. And also for me, it was interesting. It was good because it's also fairly easy. It's not you know, it's not really that hard, but it was really interesting, and it was a brilliant lifeline.
I've got a question here from Mauro. He asks, hi Claudia, just wondering if these portraits from this modern hunter-gatherer series are taken in natural light, or if you have used flash or speed light.
Yeah, they're all shot in natural light. Yeah, and I shot them with. I mean, these are all also shot on the medium format, but digital this time. And it's the only thing that I have added is basically the black backdrop. The reason why is because I wanted them to be all isolated. I wanted everybody just to look like they're kind of not connected in that sense. Not because they're not connected, but because this virus has isolated us, made us feel maybe kind of apart from each other. It doesn't work so much with the two, but maybe, like, you know, for the singular ones, it's like kind of like the idea of just having that person and then there's nothing. Because usually I really like, I love, you know, images or portraits that are in an environment. I think that is some, yeah, I really enjoy looking at them, but also taking them. And this is really unusual for me to have kind of the same background.
Yeah, I think like this also, like it almost looks like as if they're really being equipped like a proper hunter-gatherer. You can't just go outside. You need to have and wear a certain type of equipment here that actually gets you ready for this new type of life out there. And I think that comes across really, really well through the isolation because of the background. I've got another question. What's going to happen with this series? Do you plan to publish these?
I don't really know yet. I mean, I think so far I've had some really lovely responses to it, but my sense is that it's maybe, it's crazy, but it's maybe already gone, you know, like it will be, the way I see it is, it will be a really fascinating thing to look back on. But I think with this pandemic, it feels almost like we've been on overload, like the information is just so enormous. It almost feels like newspapers and media outlets maybe want to move away from it as quickly as possible. That's my kind of sense. But I don't know. I will see.
Yeah. Did you try, or you could maybe try Hoxton Mini Press? I could see this going in there just perfectly. Also, like the image-text relationship. That's just their cup of tea, I think. And also, I mean, obviously, it's such an incredibly important moment in time that has never, well, I don't want to say that has never happened, but certainly something that is, yeah, you know, that people are going to talk about for generations, I think. Yeah, I could really imagine like a book publisher would be very, very interested in this.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't, I mean, I tried definitely like bigger outlets like The Guardian, the BBC, and they wrote back. They said, you know, they liked it, but they said that it's not for them right now because they kind of feel like they're moving on from it. But I don't know. I just kind of like, I think with everything happening and also still not really knowing what's going to happen, it's just like it was such a great thing for me to do, because it got me out of my house and out of my head a little bit, and just, you know, I think that just the act of photographing, as I said before, it's something that I just feel like the connections, I really need them and I really love them. This idea of meeting somebody else and exchanging something is so important, and I felt it's even more important in a moment like this, when everything's a bit up in the air, to have the own sense of like, I can make my own picture of what's going on. Not really, because obviously you can't see it, but it's just that gives it. I needed some reassurance on a human level. And for that, it was absolutely brilliant, because everybody had their own take on it, you know. And some people were like, "Oh, we don't believe in it," and other people were very, you know, involved and afraid. So.
And so you're saying that you still produce this story. What's going to be next?
So next, I have a couple of other stories. I mean, there's a story that I wanted to do before the pandemic started, and that's I still want to do it, and it's something to do with our relationships to animal and how that has changed. It's also a portrait series, actually. I am kind of really coming back to this idea of portraiture, because it resolves a couple of. It feels like it resolves a few things that I find more harder the longer I have been photographing, and that's this idea of you know, telling somebody else a story and how to do that. And so on that note, I'm also really interested and trying out a collaborative kind of project with with a few people, trying to tell their stories, trying to tell these stories together. And I have no idea where it's going to go, so I don't know yet. But you know, I think as long as I can continue to photograph and to kind of be engaged in this way, then that's great. Actually, I wanted to show quickly, just for people who maybe are interested to know, this is this journal, this women photograph journal that I talked about before. And if you wanted to follow it on Instagram, it's really, really fascinating. A lot of people, a lot of different voices. And then the other thing that I also wanted to say, just before I forget it, is during that whole time, what also helped me a lot to kind of keep working is a group. They're called it's called Documentary Storytellers, and I signed up with them, and basically it's really cool. But every morning from 10 till 12, you work as a group of people together. Everybody works silently, but it's a brilliant framework that has really helped me continue to just think of myself as a professional, but also just to keep certain structures during this time. Yeah.
Do they give you assignments when you say that you're collaborating or working but silently? How does that look like? Do you share on a regular basis what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah. So basically, at the beginning of the morning, when we meet, everybody says what they're planning to do in this given time. Is it an hour or 2 hours? And then after that time, there's a quick feedback loop where one can say, okay, this went well, and then there is an exchange. And often actually there's some really good ideas that come from there, or people are saying, oh, you should maybe, how it is. You should maybe go to speak to Oxford Mini Press or something like that. And then you go like, yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, I found that really nurturing. That's good. Yeah. But yeah, as the next one, I mean, this is just my last image. But I think the question that I am now asking myself really the most, and I've been talking about this with my friends and also with my parents, with my father. He's an artist, so I'm talking to him a lot about this, is who are we doing this work for? Or who are we doing these stories for? Who should it be there? Should it primarily be for an audience, or should it be for the people that we are photographing, or should it be for, and I think that is a really big question that I am kind of like mulling over right now, and I find it really fascinating.
Do you think that the answer to this question, should you find it, is going to change the way you photograph?
Yeah, I think it has already changed the way I'm photographing, and in terms of, as I said before, it's like, I think this idea of telling somebody's story and how can you put yourself in the picture, so that it's not so much, actually, I think maybe the question is, for me, it doesn't really exist in the moment where I'm taking the picture, because the people that I'm photographing, on the whole, they know that I'm there. They know why I'm there, and there's been conversations about it beforehand. So it's not like a shock or anything. And even when I'm taking the picture, I really often, almost always now, show them the pictures and even tell them what I'm going to say. So it's really like, there is quite to a big degree a collaboration, or even at least there's acknowledgement, but and content. But I think it's more about then the viewing that is happening later on. How can I, or how can we, or anybody that makes a story like this, include themselves in that story, so that the viewer can see, this is I can see this is totally the photographer, or this is the photographer to that degree, or you know. And I think that is important. It's important to somehow make that more visible. So I think my decision was last year that I would take images more when they were coming towards me, rather than going out looking for them. So basically shooting an interaction, photographing an interaction that is happening between me and somebody, rather than going out to look for something that is happening.
Yeah, and this image, for example, here, what I noticed that in a lot of your photographs, how can I explain? There's a static element to them, and there is a dynamic element to them. So they're not all completely like dynamic and in situ, and there's always like the decisive moments. But then on the other side, they're not all like, let's say like this one here, they're not all staged, for example, or where you directly direct the viewer, and where you directly give them, you know, let's say where there's a direct communication between the two of you. Can you talk a little bit about how you get, for example, a shot like this one here? How much direction do you give the sitters or the models? How spontaneous is this?
Yeah, no, there's no direction here. No. I mean, basically, we were just. This was last year, and in Serbia, and I was shooting a story on the Roma and the housing situation that they're in, and these were two. This is Nino and Maria, and I've seen them a couple of times. I've visited them a couple of times, or actually I've been there over 2 years, and I've visited them every time when I went. And in this occasion, they were standing there talking to a friend of theirs who was standing next to me, and they were talking about his life abroad in Germany, and they were listening, and it was just, I mean, I just photographed, so I didn't stage it at all. No. I think staging is something that I find rather difficult, but yeah, I think it's
super. Yeah, an amazing photograph, I think. Good. So I think we can start maybe with
sharing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, really. I think we can probably start with some Q&As. So that's a good opportunity for everyone who is watching this to get involved. Don't be shy. You can just ask any questions you like. These can be technical questions, or conceptual questions, or questions when it comes to how do you find your inspirations, etc. And I would like to ask a question, if it's okay, about the camera. I personally find the camera you use incredibly important for the way you work. It looks as if you're kind of a little bit, like you said that for the modern hunter-gatherers that you have been using a digital medium format camera. How about the last image that you just showed us?
Yeah, that as well.
Okay, that's really interesting, because it still has this medium format look, and also I think the colors are very, very particular. I think I would really say that there's probably something like digital and like analog or film colors, right? Yeah. Can I ask what is the latest camera that you're using?
I've basically, a friend of mine, she went on a bicycling tour for 2 years around the world, which is amazing, and she had this amazing Fuji camera, Fuji film 50 GFX 50S, and I bought it off her, and since then I'm basically photographing all on this camera, because I really like it, and it gives me what I hadn't had before, these two worlds of basically the medium format heaviness and feel, and then the digital fastness of the whole process, because shooting on film now, it just feels like such a slow process. You have to scan it, and it takes too long. And I think for me, I just don't have enough time. I mean, yeah, right now I don't have the time to do that. So this is just the perfect mix.
Good. And also, could I just ask about your image collection in the background? Before the talk, when we had a little, like a mini rehearsal, we talked about these ones as well. How much do you expose yourself to images by other artists? That means in the form of exhibitions, books, etc. Are you very active, or how does your research work?
I don't think I wouldn't class myself as very active, but I have spurts. Then I go and I'm almost like, I look for other images. I feel like in my practice, I need to. There's times for certain things. Like sometimes I'm just really like looking for new images, and I want to see other people, how they've done stories and how they told this or that, and I'm really curious. And then other times I'm almost like I feel like I need to close off and feel like overwhelmed with other people's stories and stuff. But yes, I think anywhere that I come across books, a lot in exhibitions, but I watch a lot of films, things.
Yeah. Would you agree, Claudia, that if you expose yourself too much to other, let's say, other artists' work, that it can sometimes, I don't know, almost be a bit of a creative overexposure? That sometimes, sometimes your own inner creative voice can be, a very, very subtle process, a very tender little plant, yeah. And if you always, that's what I feel very often personally, if I always look at other people's work, I almost feel that this influence is too much, too strong, yeah. And I find it difficult to kind of find and listen to my own voice. Is that the same for you, or?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's a very fine balance, but and I haven't mastered it yet. But, suddenly you just kind of feel like, oh, this is enough now. This is too much. Or then you suddenly go like, oh, well, I want to see more of this or that. I think Instagram is exactly that. Sometimes it's too much, and then sometimes it's just amazing. You see other people, how they've, just what their language, how they use that. It's really, that's great.
Good. So just asking anyone else who is who's live, who's online, if you've got any other questions. So I know that we've got this. So now it's a good time for you to ask those questions, because as I said, we've got this delay. We've got this about like a 1 minute delay until I actually see this here, and until I basically like forward this one here to Claudia, and until you can then finally see this. But yeah, that's all looking good so far. So if no one else has any further questions, then I'd say thank you so much, Claudia. That was an amazing talk. I really, really, really love your work.
Thank
you. Before I finish this this talk here, for everyone who has basically like tuned in here for the first time, a quick reminder in terms of where you can watch those talks later on. So we've got here, that's our webpage, lip.co.uk /talks. And so all the talks that we have, we record, and then you can watch them later on. Now, I've just seen from Chiara, he or she asked the question, I love your work, and I'm very interested in the question that you're asking yourself about who the work is for. Is your question also about what change can my work produce in the audience, on the society?
Yeah. Yes, I think. This is maybe very silly, but I sometimes imagine the world to be this really massive table, one giant table with loads and loads of people on it, and they're all having conversations. And I just sometimes, think about, okay, which of these conversations do I feel strongly about? Where do I have something to add at all, or to which of these conversations? Is it like climate change? Is it social injustice? Is it, I don't know, where do I have a connection to or an insight, and where can I actually add something? And I think absolutely that my curiosity about what is happening and how it is all connected and is also connected to that idea of how can we improve it? What can we do in order for it to become better? And especially when we have something massive like the breakdown of climate, or these things, they are massive things, and we need to overcome them. And everybody somehow, ideally, kind of pitching from their side and offer parts of the whole solution, or the whole. That's what I feel. I feel like it's going to be a joint venture, and everybody has to come together with their own little bit. So in a such, definitely.
All right. Good, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Have a lovely weekend, and that goes to everyone who is still with us. Thank you so much for watching. It's hope that you enjoyed this talk. Remember, pencil this in. The next talk is going to be on the first Friday of next month. If you would like to receive an update from us, then please sign up to our mailing list, and we're going to inform and remind you of the next talk. That would be 1 week before the talk is actually due.